We're diving into a fascinating, honestly, kind of unbelievable story about the hidden financial dangers of scaling enterprise AI. We're talking about a situation where a piece of AI technology worked so incredibly well that it literally became a threat to a company's bottom line. It's the ultimate paradox of productivity. Look, we have to start with this jarring plot twist. Microsoft, the very company that has arguably been cheering the loudest for global AI adoption, just pulled the plug on a major internal AI tool. And the reason? It's not because it was broken, it's not because nobody used it. Actually, they canceled it specifically because their own engineers loved it way too much. Sounds completely counterintuitive, right? So let's jump right into Section 1, Microsoft's AI plot twist. To really grasp how crazy this is, just consider Microsoft's absolute commitment to AI. Earlier this year, CEO Satya Nadella proudly announced that generative AI now writes nearly 30% of their code. 30%! I mean, they are completely all in on this technology, embedding it absolutely everywhere. This is definitely not a company that shies away from AI. But then, boom, we get this internal memo on May 14th from Microsoft's Executive Vice President, Rajesh Shah. The memo drops a bombshell. Claude Code, which is an AI coding assistant made by Anthropic and introduced internally just back in December 2025, had become, in his words, perhaps a little too popular. Now, the official corporate spin for pulling the licenses was tool chain unification, but the underlying reality that was widely reported, developers simply preferred Anthropic's tool over Microsoft's own options, and that massive preference was getting way, way too expensive. And we aren't just talking about a tiny experimental team losing their favorite toy here. Engineers across the most critical product teams, Windows, Microsoft 365, Outlook, Teams, and Surface, are all being instructed to immediately stop using Claude Code. By June 30th, 2026, they're being forced to shift over to Microsoft's own GitHub Copilot CLI. The big takeaway? Microsoft is actively reeling in a beloved, highly effective tool from its most essential engineers. Which brings us to Section 2, the token pricing trap, and how variable costs scale. To really understand why a wildly popular tool is suddenly a bad thing, we have to look at how enterprise software billing has fundamentally changed. Remember the old SaaS software worlds? You'd pay a flat rate per employee. You'd enjoy a nice, predictable monthly budget, and you'd get unlimited usage. Easy, right? Well, the new AI reality relies entirely on variable, token-based pricing. It's pay per prompt. The meter is always running, and costs are completely unpredictable. So, how does token-based pricing actually work? Basically, it's a system where absolutely every single action consumes tokens. Whether it's a quick prompt, an in-depth code review, a debugging request, or a generated response, it all eats up tokens. And those tokens translate directly into real dollars and cents. Now, at a small scale, for a couple of people, it seems incredibly cheap. But just imagine thousands of elite engineers coding continuously, 8 hours a day. Suddenly, heavy usage isn't a success metric anymore. It turns that token consumption into a literal financial ticking time bomb. Moving right along to Section 3, Uber's billion-dollar burn. Okay, so Microsoft is certainly not the only tech giant waking up in a cold sweat over this. Let's zoom out to Uber. They gave this exact same tool, Claude Code, to about 5,000 of their engineers, and the adoption rate was phenomenal, hitting somewhere between 84 and 95% by April 2026. But because the team was so incredibly engaged, Uber soon faced a staggering monthly API cost. We're talking between $500 and $2,000 per month for a single engineer. When you multiply those massive monthly usage costs across thousands of dedicated engineers who are continuously querying an AI all day long, you get a jaw-dropping number. To handle this, Uber had set aside a massive $3.4 billion AI budget for the entire year of 2026. And they blew through that entire $3.4 billion in just 4 months. Yeah, no way, right? It's a staggering revelation. This completely proves the extreme, almost existential risk of scaling token-based tools without strict guardrails in place. The more useful the AI is, the more the engineers are going to use it, and the much, much faster the company burns through its cash. Let's look at how the industry is reacting in Section 4, the end of fixed pricing. This kind of incredible cash burn is naturally triggering widespread industry panic. The immediate result? Prices are absolutely skyrocketing. Recent reports point out that AI software prices in the United States have already climbed by a massive margin, jumping anywhere between 20 and 37% in just the last few months. Providers are out there desperately trying to cover the immense compute costs that are being generated by these heavy enterprise users. And the ground beneath our feet is shifting incredibly fast right now in mid-2026. Just look at this timeline. On May 14th, we saw that Microsoft memo pulling Claude code. Then, on June 1st, Microsoft's own GitHub Copilot aggressively moved all its plans away from flat rates over to strict usage-based billing through GitHub AI credits. And by June 30th, the internal Claude code phase-out at Microsoft will be 100% complete. You can see it clearly. The entire tech industry is coordinating a swift and sudden death to flat-rate, all-you-can-eat AI pricing. Which brings us to our final takeaway, Section 5, the Enterprise AI Reality Check. So, where does this leave the future of enterprise AI if these tools are simply too expensive to use at full scale? Well, it's forcing a brutal balancing act in tech boardrooms everywhere. On one hand, companies are maintaining massive AI commitments, right? Like Microsoft's $13 billion OpenAI investment and their deep Copilot integrations. But on the exact same token, they are ruthlessly reevaluating costs, canceling broad licenses, and heavily scrutinizing what it actually costs to operate these things at scale. To be clear, they aren't abandoning AI at all. They're just desperately trying to balance massive productivity gains against the absolute necessity of a predictable budget. The ripple effects here are huge for everyone involved. Companies are totally rethinking their internal deployment strategies and shifting rapidly away from unmetered access. But crucially, this puts immense new pressure on those high-valuation AI firms, like Anthropic. External platforms and investors are suddenly scrutinizing whether token-based revenue is actually sustainable in the long run. Think about it. If your absolute best customers, giants like Microsoft and Uber, have to cap their usage simply because your tool works too well, how do you actually justify those massive multi-billion-dollar valuations? Which leaves us with a massive industry-defining question to wrap up this explainer. Will enterprises actually keep paying for AI when usage truly scales across their entire workforce? If the ultimate cost of productivity is a broken budget, something in this AI economy has to give. The answer over this next year could very well determine if the current AI bubble continues to expand or if it finally pops.